This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nash Villager Podcast. It's December 10th, 2024. On this day in 1948, the United Nations made a groundbreaking proclamation that many of us, especially in America, probably take for granted. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that everyone across the globe is entitled to certain rights just for being a living human being. It declares that everyone has a fundamental dignity and worth, regardless of race, color, religion, economic status, sex, political opinion, that nothing should get in the way of basic rights. The right to life, liberty, and security, to freedom of thought, expression, and religion, the right to live free from slavery, torture, or cruel punishment, the right to be legally recognized as a person equal to anyone else, to not be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile, to seek remedy in some kind of court system when those fundamental rights are abused or when charged with a crime, the right to have a nationality, to return to a home nation, or to seek asylum when your home country isn't a safe place, protection for families, and the right to marry, the right to work for equal pay, to own property, but also to rest, the right to education, and full participation in a community's cultural life. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. The anniversary of that UN declaration is now marked as International Human Rights Day. And here in Nashville, it will be celebrated with a program from the Tennessee Human Rights Commission, honoring people who've furthered equality and justice in this state. This year's Lifetime Achievement Award is going to Brenda Morrow. She's the director of the Edge Hill Family Resource Center. The FRC works to connect residents in the neighborhood with services that can be of help. Over the years, it's built working relationships with more than 60 area agencies. But it also finds ways to generate help within the neighborhood itself. For example, one program teaches youth how to garden as they grow produce for the area's low-income residents. In addition to running the FRC, Morrow is often the voice of the neighborhood in news reports about the area's challenges, speaking up and advocating for what Edge Hill residents want and need. The Human Rights Commission is giving its Outstanding Service Award to two people. Dr. Paul Juarez helps lead the Department of Family and Community Medicine at Meharry Medical College. That's the department charged with training doctors to provide wide-ranging care in underserved communities. And part of that teaching model is showing by doing. The department runs clinics with full primary care services. Dr. Juarez also works with Meharry's research center that seeks to eliminate health disparities and with efforts specifically working to teach doctors how to address the needs of LGBTQ patients, unhoused people, and migrant farm workers. The other Outstanding Service Award is going to Dr. Julie Duchin, who founded the Tennessee Higher Education Initiative in 2011. That's a program that helps people in the state's prisons earn their associate's or bachelor's degrees. It started off with 25 students at the Charles Bass Correctional Complex, taking classes through Nashville State. It expanded to facilities in many parts of the state, and to date has enrolled almost 300 students. And now, with 90 alums out of prison and back in the community, the program is also offering support services to help people re-enter the world outside prison walls as they find new ways to live, work, and use their education. The annual Human Rights Celebration also includes an honor called the Rising Advocate Award. This year, that's going to three people: Judith Claire June with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, Conexión America's Justin Munoz, and Stephanie Watson at the Tennessee Department of Security. In just a few minutes, a pair of Nashville music mainstays are taking a new approach in their latest release. Coming up after the newscast, it's Gillian Welch and David Rawlings.
Nashville Public Radio is always here to keep you informed, whether it's the latest news or music you should check out. Every week, What Where Wednesdays shares the latest happenings taking place right here in Nashville by talking to members of our community, putting on events in your neighborhood and beyond. So tune in to What Were Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you can always find events at WNXP.org/events.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. First responders at Nashville's airport will be doing safety training today that could be surprising and disruptive. The airport's explosive disposal unit will be training at 10 o'clock this morning and again at 1 this afternoon with a drill that includes loud noises and smoke. Airport officials are spreading the word about the training to try and avoid public alarm. Many in Middle Tennessee's Syrian community are celebrating President Bashar al-Assad's fall from power. After 13 years of civil war, Syrian rebel forces have taken the capital Damascus, and Assad has fled the country. WPLN's Rose Gilbert reports.
Murfreesboro's Syrian community has gathered to sing, dance, and rejoice. The room is filled with pre-Assad Syrian flags, green, white, and black stripes with 3 red stars. Some are cloth, some are hand-drawn, and some are made up of balloons.
Overwhelmingly happy. It's incredibly happy. I did not think I would live to see that day.
That's Salis Benati, an MTSU professor who came to Tennessee from Syria more than 40 years ago due to the lack of political freedoms. The Assad regime ruled Syria with an iron fist for more than half a century, and were known for torturing political prisoners and using chemical weapons against civilians. In recent years, Spinati's watched his homeland go through a civil war and a desperate refugee crisis. Now, he says Syria's future feels bright. He hopes the nation can fully rejoin the international community and become known for its rich culture, history, and cuisine.
Everything about Syria is beautiful and is going to be more beautiful after Assad regime has collapsed.
Some Americans, he says, might have reservations about the rebel forces who deposed Assad. But he's not worried.
Even if the devil himself rules Syria, it's going to be better than what we had.
Bashar al-Assad and his family fled to Russia, where they have been granted asylum. Rose Gilbert, WPLN News.
More than 500 people spent nights in Metro's emergency cold weather overflow shelter during the recent cold snap. The city opened that shelter for 7 nights and averaged about 180 people daily. Some took refuge there more than once. The city's backup shelter opens when the temperature dips below freezing and transports people with free shuttle buses. Volunteers are still needed on cold days, and sign-ups are available through the website Hands On Nashville. Residents in Murfreesboro should be on the lookout for a special mailing starting this week, and it's not from Santa. The mail is for the city's special census to get an accurate count of the population. The response forms are being mailed starting this week as part of the city's Count Me In campaign. City officials want to verify the population growth they say is reflected in new residential permits and people moving into the area since the previous 2020 census count. Certifying the city's growth with a special census will help secure its full allocation of state revenue based on population. Residents can also participate by completing the form online at the city's secure website. The information collected is confidential and will be used only for the special census. Tennessee State University has received a $1 million grant from the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development to study affordable housing in Nashville. News Channel 5 reports TSU will use the money to research what happens to people who are priced out of their neighborhoods when wealthier people move in. Researchers will also determine how effective federal Section 8 housing grants have been in preventing homelessness in Middle Tennessee. The grant is part of a larger project by the federal government to help historically black universities research affordable housing in their communities. This week, Nashville Public Radio's music discovery station WNXP released their ranking of top 10 albums by Nashville artists of 2024. The music spans genres, from future nostalgia glitchcore to new countrypolitan. Music reporter Justin Barney brings us WNXP's pick for the #1 Nashville album of the year.
We have Jack White with No Name. It's incredible that he has once again found a way to dazzle us, stuffing unreleased albums into unsuspecting customers' bags at Third Man is how he released this thing. And then the songs are rippers. It's Jack White at his joyous, most fun, and most energetic. #1 with a bullet. No Name.
That's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling right now. That's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm feeling right now. Yeah.
Justin Barney, WNXP.
You can check out the full list now at WNXP.org. Nashville singer and songwriter Larissa J. died in a car accident over the weekend. She had just turned 40. Senior music writer Julie Height has this remembrance.
Consult Larissa J's Spotify profile, and you'll see that she didn't leave a ton of recordings behind. That had to do with opportunity, not ability. The songs she did release showcased a strong voice and point of view. She rejected country music's limitations on what she could sing about or how as a black woman.
If you're scared of my skin, hate for you to read my mind, set you right. I'm a mad black woman on a mic, and I ain't gonna stop this time.
Jay grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, before finishing high school in Nashville. Not long after, she sought out stages with her acoustic guitar. Whether she was doing originals or interpreting classics, her version of country was thrillingly open. She often incorporated rock and roll muscularity and the testifying depth of soul.
Whether it's country, whether it's R&B, whether it's soul, whether it's pop, it's going to be a Larissa rendition.
But Jay found few outlets in Nashville's segregated scene 2 decades ago. Love Noise open mics welcomed her alongside neo-soul singers. Her career was interrupted by having kids, but she always returned to it. When the Black Opry embraced her in recent years, she embraced them right back. And she worked the live circuit, joining writers' rounds, playing events, and entertaining tourists. Jay was particularly proud to claim space downtown.
Pretty sure I'm the only black woman with a residency down on Broadway, down in the honky-tonk. That's dope.
So is the fact that there are Larissa J show clips out there. The sound quality might not be pristine, but her verve cuts through. Julie Height, WPLN.
Boy, you look like
Both basketball teams at the University of Tennessee are undefeated, and that has them both in the nation's top 25. The men's team is the new number 1, and that's a first since the 2018-19 season. On the women's side, the Vols had been out of the rankings for more than a year. That was the longest unranked span in program history. They're now back at number 19. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Over the last 3 decades, the Nashville singing and songwriting duo of Gillian, Welch, and David Rawlings has contributed a lot of songs to the folk canon. And the great tunes are treasured because they tell stories broad enough to be sung by all sorts of people. But senior music writer Julie Height says that with their latest album, Woodland, Welch and Rawlings have subtly turned the attention towards their own singular musical journey. So she rambled down that path with WNXP's Nashville Artist of the Month.
I've followed the work of Gillian Welch and David Rawlings for a good long time, and I heard a familiar sound in the opening track of their latest album, Woodland. Their handsomely matched harmonizing has a subdued rhythm section just sort of ambling along beneath it.
a freight train yesterday. It was chugging, plugging away across the river. The trestle was so high.
What came next caught me off guard, though.
I used to dream of something unseen. It was something that I thought I wanted.
Welch and Rawlings are known for putting rustic musical elements to virtuosic use. That's what they've done on the 10 albums they've released under one or both of their names, and numerous archival collections and soundtracks, including Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So what were they doing making lush, urbane, 70s-style soft rock?
I wanted people to be so scared after track 2.
That's the mischief of Rawlings. He and Welch produce their own music and release it on their own tiny label, Iacovone. Nobody told them to beef up their sound. They decided to briefly buck expectations on an album they named for their studio. The studio they had to rebuild in the wake of Middle Tennessee's 2020 tornado before they could get back to recording what they want, when, and how they want. It's a reminder that act of God was a rare example of outside interference in their career.
I mean, I think we're really stubborn people, and we really don't like to be stopped by external forces.
Or forced to compromise in some way that we don't like.
Welch and Rawlings have become the contemporary archetype of an acoustic duo. So it's easy to forget how unorthodox they seemed when they arrived in Nashville in the early 1990s. With their conservatory training, they could have pursued any number of musical directions, but what captured their imaginations was the clever craft of folk singer-songwriters and especially the raw-boned power of the old-time brother duos from generations back.
I remember saying, well, this isn't a field that's been plowed out all the way. You know, they did it for a little while in the 30s and they kind of moved on. It felt like there was maybe some ground to cover.
I will know my Savior.
But this was peak Garth Brooks era, and the Americana music scene hadn't coalesced yet. Welch and Rawlings' lean acoustic style set them apart at Nashville Writers' Rounds, and that uniqueness led to publishing and record deals. As they learned how the industry operated, they chose self-sufficiency instead.
We were booked to do a show in Boston, and it was in a winter show, and we were going to fly up.
Like touring artists do, but the weather grew increasingly rough.
They turned the plane around and sent us home.
Yeah,
after circling the airport for 3 hours.
Yeah. But basically, that's why we decided it'll be the two of us.
The two of them driving themselves to shows where they'd rely only on the intricate interplay between their voices and guitars.
Not being like, okay, well, we wrote the song and it'll be great when we have the string section with us. It was like, no, it needs to be good if we just sing
We
it.
have to be able to do it.
Rawlings and Welch applied that mindset to other aspects of their career, starting their label, taking out loans to buy the studio so they could work on their own schedule, making improvements to the building by hand, eventually even setting up their own vinyl cutting and pressing operations. So the impact of the 2020 tornado registered in an intimate way. And that feeling of even temporarily losing the insular creative existence they fashioned for themselves influenced the songs they laid down there once they could again. This time, the melancholy in Welch and Rawlings' lyrics felt more personal than in the past.
There is a less guardedness to some of this writing where if it felt direct, we didn't do anything to try to couch it.
We didn't transmogrify it into folk speak.
Time makes the wheels spin and the years roll out and the doubt rolls in.
At the same time, they've grown even more appreciative that so many other performers, from country stars to indie rockers, have taken up their material.
Of course, the highest compliment is another musician deciding to play your song.
I would actually say that the highest compliment is when you're walking by a campfire somewhere and another non-professional musician is playing your song.
They still remember the first time that happened in the 90s. They were awakened from a pre-show nap by someone singing Orphan Girl.
No father, no sister, no brother.
It still astounds me. It's still almost like magic to me that the songs go out into the world and they do things and they have these lives that we rarely know.
Even after nearly 30 years in the spotlight, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings' musical life has its own mystique. For Nashville Public Radio, I'm Julie Height.
That would never change. I'm looking in the mirror, and I know that I'm to blame, 'cause it's all gonna be like the song said, falling from her curves.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up tomorrow.